Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Uncle Matt's Cookery Lessons. There's a recipe for pork rillette. That's what it looks like when it's made. There's another image of it there. It is really lovely. We're going to see how I make it. Okay, there you are. There's the ingredients laid out on a board looking all very nice. There's quite a few ingredients, but really it's quite simple and straightforward to make. It just takes time and a bit of elbow grease. First of all, we've got to prepare this bit of pork belly. Pork belly I'm using because it's a very fatty piece of pork. The fat you need. I'm not removing the skin. If it hadn't have been pre-scored when I bought it, I might have done, but we can take it off at the end, so it's not a problem. Cut it into even-sized pieces. I've gone quite large pieces. Some recipes say dice this up into like an inch cube. Don't think it's necessary. We're going to cook this really slow. The other ingredients going in are all to add flavour, they're aromatics. I've got some stock vegetables, onions, celery. Decided to put a whole carrot in there as well. Garlic. On the recipe I've got 5 cloves of garlic. I've reserved one for later on, and some of the parsley, because we're going to make what's called a Lard, which is going to go through it at the end, give it a nice bit of vibrant colour and flavour. But there's about half the parsley going in. I haven't put down measurements of the herbs, you can decide yourself. So here's the rest of the ingredients going in, the aromatic ones. They really do penetrate, those herbs, especially the juniper and the clove and the star anise. And that is a big chunk of lard, which is pork fat, and then some white wine. I do recommend you get yourself a good heavy saucepan for this. That is a cast iron one, it's also known as a Dutch oven, with a lid that fits well. If you're going to try to do this in like a roasting tray, you're going to have to like double up on your tin foil and really pinch the edges, because you don't want it to lose the liquid levels. To speed the process up, I just wanted to bring it up to a simmer, as I've done there, and then that's going in the oven. Now this I started filming in the evening. I gave this an hour at 150 degrees centigrade. If you're going to do this all the way through, if you say during the day, 4 hours at 150 should be enough. But there you go. What I did, I started it off on 150, I put it in my oven at 100, and I left it in overnight. I came down in the morning, I gave it another hour, turned up to 150 again, just to make sure. But here you go, you test it. If it doesn't feel like this, if you see how tender this is, there you go, it's breaking apart. That is what we're after. And that's the reason why we use pork belly and not a lean cut, because a lean cut would be really dry and quite unpleasant now. Pork belly, pork shoulder, those cuts, they get better under the long, slow cooking. I faffed about there, thinking, what am I going to do? Get them out nicely, and I thought, no, just tip it in. It's weird, when you're filming yourself, you're really conscious of what does it look like. So that's why sometimes I dither a bit and I look like I'm not sure what to do. Basically here I want to remove all of the bits that are not going to be nice to eat, so the herbs and the spices. I decided to keep all the vegetables in the rillette. It's going to add a little contrast. You'll see little bits of carrot in there at the end. It's going to look really lovely. And I'll give you a bit of backstory on this. I worked at a very, very posh hotel in Bath called the Priory. Now, not where you go to a clinic because you've been drinking too much and doing too much drugs. This is just called the Priory Hotel in Bath. I'll do this while I'm describing this. There you go, draining out any other bits that might get in the way. And I was a newbie. I had no idea what I was doing. And the sous chef kept giving me the challenge of coming up with a dish every day, and I didn't know anything. Anyway, so he showed me a cheap method of rillette, which was not rillette. It was a fish one, and he mixed it with some mayonnaise. So I got in my head, that's how you make rillette. It's stuff mixed with mayonnaise. and a very upset French waiter went away on his holiday and he brought me back a jar of pork rillette, and wow, the difference is incredible. It is nothing like mixed with mayonnaise. This is a meat spread, I believe. It translates to sliced pork, and it comes from northwest France, the Tours and Anjou region. Now, while I was waffling there, I was just removing the skin. There we go, so definitely not going to be crackling. That's rubbish, we don't want the skin, but we want as much of the fat as we possibly can. And now we've got to break this up. So anyway, the long and the short of the story is, I can't remember that French waiter's name, but it was a revelation for me. And then I actually took it seriously, what is rillette? And since then I've made duck rillette dozens of times. I've made rabbit rillette, but I've never actually made pork rillette. So this is a first for me. And it doesn't look like it's going very well at this stage, but trust me, you've got to persevere. You can, if you like, just bung this straight into a Kenwood mixer with a paddle, or even into a food processor and blend it really smooth, but I like it to have some texture. And this is the other reason why I do this. Bowl of ice water. Obviously don't do this if you're using a plastic bowl, but if you're using glass or metal, the cold is going to transfer very quickly. So as you're making this, it's cooling down and you're going to get a much better idea of what the finished consistency is like. Okay, that was the resting juices and fat. I put about half of it in. Really what I want is more fat, not all the resting juices, even though they're absolutely delicious. I'm worried that it may not keep, it may not be preserved for as long if I put all the juices in. I think if you're going to have this within a few days of making it, feel free to tip the whole lot in. I was being a bit more reserved. This took ages. This is probably after about 5 or 10 minutes of working away at this. I've obviously edited the video down because it would be unbelievably boring to watch all of that. And we're beginning to get there. You can see there's no big bits left anymore. I've changed to a wooden spoon because I think it's more effective. Here's me trying to get the fat and not the resting juices. What I did after that is I popped that bowl that had the juices and fat in the fridge to solidify. I should have done that at the beginning perhaps. You could do that. Right, we're really nearly there now, so I'm just going to prepare what the French call a persillade, which is raw garlic and parsley chopped together. The Italians have gremolata, which has the addition of a bit of lemon zest, so effectively the Italians win, I suppose, but I'm staying true to my French roots here and not putting lemon, although it would be quite nice. We're not crushing this garlic, it's chopped, so if you get little bits of garlic in your mouth when you're eating it, it's all part of the pleasure, you're welcome. Just chop that together for a minute. Don't worry about it being too fine, that's looking good. Official proportions would be, I believe, 1 part garlic to 4 parts parsley, but who's measuring, eh? It's your rillette, you're making it, you do whatever you want. Other herbs are also perfectly acceptable. Anyway, so get that in, and we are just about done, although we've got to season it. But I leave the seasoning until this stage. And that's the other reason why doing it over ice. You get a much better idea of how it's going to taste chilled. Because chilled food requires more salt, more seasoning than hot food. And that was a sea salt, I believe a bit like a kosher salt, but don't quote me on that one. Just using my hands as well, so make sure your hands are nice and clean. So Eugene, if you're watching this, who got a jar, you've probably been enjoying it this morning. Yeah, I've used my hands quite a lot when I did this, but I promise you that it'll clean. So I've chosen some bowls to put this into. I'm taking a bit of time with a spoon to really smooth it down, because we're going to pour fat on this. That fat, the purpose of the fat is another addition of preserving this. And for that fat, by the way, well, you'll see me in a moment, I use what was reserved here. So I just break that because I want to get the juice out. That's going in my next gravy. Tasted amazing. And what you don't see me do is I go to my fridge and I get another great big bit of lard, probably about another 50 grams or so, put it in the pan and melt that. Now that is a jar of Waitrose gherkins, or cornichons, that I've used up for this recipe. Waitrose, if you want to sponsor this channel, get in touch. I'm more than happy to discuss that with you. If not, jars from any other supermarket are also perfectly acceptable. So that's the melted lard, put on top. Some people think it doesn't look very nice. I actually think it does. Once it solidifies, it goes white. But that creates a seal over your pate or your rillette, and it will keep for much more longer in the fridge. That's Eugene's one. Lucky Eugene. That's how it looks when it sets. I think it looks quite nice actually. But before I did that, I had a little taste. Those bits of toast, I didn't show you making that. I'm sure you can do that, but those were done in the oven. Sliced bread, bit of olive oil, bit of salt and pepper, baked for about 10 minutes at about 180 degrees. Cornichon on the top. I think you definitely have to have something pickly, something vinegary or sharp, and it is divine. Absolutely unbeatable. I've got 3 pots of it in the fridge, and they're not going to last very long. Anyway, thank you ever so much for watching Uncle Matt's Cookery Lessons. I hope you enjoyed this one. Oh, look at that. Oh, dive into that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, all of that stuff. Let's help this channel get going, shall we? We're moving along quite nicely. Thank you to the people that have subscribed recently. How are you doing? Anyway, look out for my next video, which will be coming really soon. Till then, bye.